Very good afternoon, all of you. And today, being our day 12, we're going to be starting with a new practical exercise, and it's considered to be as EPL. EPL, we call, and that's your exercises of practical life skills. And before we started, and it is we greet one another, and most often today, EPL skills are like more of graceful and courteous activities. We sing along, we do a lot of practical skills and things like that. The first greeting song that we would be having is to say hello to each other. And that's going to be a very traditional song that we would be doing in our classes as well. Okay? So that's the first song that we're going
Good
to.
afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. Hello, 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 how are you? Hello, 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 how are you? I'm good. I'm great. I'm wonderful. I'm good. I'm great. I'm wonderful. So nod your head. Hello, 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 how are you? Hello, 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 how are you? I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm not so good. I'm tired. I'm hungry. I'm not so good. Keep nodding your head. Hello, 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 how are you? Hello, 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 how are you? That's really nice. And in case if you want to get into a little bit more of an energetic song, you can also play this particular song. And this is also a hello song. It goes a little slow, and at the same time, it gives you a lot of action-oriented kind of sing-alongs, which you can actually do in your class. Everybody, how are you today? It's time to move your body and learn and play. Hello to my teacher, how are you today? I am gonna listen to what you say. Hello to my friends, how are you today? I am gonna share my toys with you today. Shake your head, yes. Shake your head now. Shake your head, yes. Shake your head now. Stretch your arms out. Lift your arms down. Lift your arms up and shake it all about. Let your head down. Again down. Lift your arms up and shake it all about. And to the left. Then to the right, then to the left, then to the right. Hello everybody, how are you today? It's time to move your body and learn and play. Hello to my teacher, how are you today? I am gonna listen to what you say. Hello every text, how are you today? I am gonna share my toys with you today. I am gonna share. Have a nice day. Hello, everybody. We will definitely have a wonderful and a good day today, and that's going to be really awesome that we had such a wonderful day. And usually we do have this weather song, right? So whenever we have some kind of a weather song, we definitely do have all of that. But at the same time, today we are going to sing along a days of the week song. Today being Wednesday, we're going to be having that days of the song. Okay, so let's get started with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days are in a week. I like to sing them out. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days are in a week. I like to sing them all. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days are in a week. I like to sing them out. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days are in a week. I like to sing them Monday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days are in a week. I like to say that 7 days are in a week. I like to say more time. 7 days are in a week. That's really nice. So we have 7 days in a week. Okay, so whenever we don't want children to tattle, we generally say nobody would like to tattle around. Okay? Tattling is a boring classical song. This song teaches kids happiness. Okay, so thank you so much. And today we're going to be starting with our new practical lesson. It's called as Exercises of Practical Life. Very, very important for all of us to get started. And yes, we do have most of the students who have joined, and few of them are actually not there in the class today, and they've applied for a leave application. So let's get started, guys. So what is practical life? And that is considered to be as one of the most important essential skill for our children in our day-to-day life. Why is it so important? What is practical life? Now, first, importantly, what we need to understand is like we need to learn, or we need to give children some exercises in their day-to-day life, so that they would learn those activities, and that's going to have a purposeful way that they're going to be working out. Now, why should we do that? Is there any importance of doing it? Is there any purpose of doing? Definitely yes. When we give these practical life exercises to our children, we're trying to aim towards and making sure that we are going to be helping the child to gain control on certain things. Like it could be coordination of movement, it could be in helping the child gain confidence, it could be towards adapting to the society, many things. But as a teacher, we got to remember very, very important thing. That is like we would be teaching children, but we would not be correcting them as per Montessori. Dr. Montessori says, teaching, not correcting. So that means children will definitely be able to be a functional member in his own society, wherein he would start correcting his mistakes on his own. So what are the exercises that we are going to be held? So we are going to make certain exercises or give an opportunity for the child to experience a certain set of exercises, which is going to help the child develop towards their intellect. And at the same time, the child will also be able to concentrate on multiple things. Now, how do we group those exercises? We group those exercises into multiple areas. So you can start noting it down. We definitely have multiple areas in our EPL. Okay, EPL stands for Exercises of Practical Life Skills. Exercises of Practical Life Skills. So our EPL stands for Exercises of Practical Life Skills. And now here, when I'm talking about this EPL skills, I have to be dividing, or it will be categorized into 4 important groups. One is your preliminary exercises. Okay, so it's called the preliminary exercises. Now, what are these preliminary exercises? The exercises that we use in our day-to-day life, which will have some simple basic movements like pouring. It could have carrying, folding, opening, closing, rolling, unrolling, okay, and spooning and all of that. All of those would be falling under a category called as preliminary exercises. The second area is called as the applied applications. It's called the applied application. Okay, when I'm talking about this applied applications, again, this applied application is divided into 2 parts. Okay, one is wherein you will be taking care of yourself. So that is care of a person. And we would also be working towards something called as care of environment. So we would be working on both of these exercises, wherein we help the child to work on himself. And at the same time, we also help the child to care about the environment too. So that's your applied exercises. The most important one is called the grace and courtesy. Next one is your grace and courtesy. So you got to be more graceful. You got to be more courteous. So you help the child develop some exercises wherein it becomes useful for the child when he starts to interacting with many people in a society or in a community. It becomes really helpful for the child. And the last one is called the control of movement. The last one is called control of movement. Now, this is where we give certain exercises for the child wherein he starts to learn about the movements, like his own movements, which is going to help him to refine on the coordination skills, which is going to help him define on his coordination skills, like walking, then carrying certain things and walking on a line, walking on a path. Okay, all those are the ones which is going to give him a different perspective altogether. Now, why do we do this? And this being the very important one, is there a reason that why we are going to be doing this? Definitely, yes. We have a reason for doing this. When we are allowing the child do these practical life exercises, and that too, they would have observed these in their day-to-day lives. Now, what are the exercises that we do every day? Right from the beginning, when we wake up from the bed, we can probably like relax for a minute, and then we are very, what do you call, we show the gratitude for a wonderful day, right? So that's how you begin your day. You could pray to whichever energy that you are following, and you say, oh Lord, thank you for the wonderful day. And that's how you are, respectful. You show gratitude towards a wonderful day, and that's how you begin your day. And then you follow your daily task. It could be like taking bath or finishing your toilet work, and then brushing your teeth, wearing clean clothes and coming down, then grooming your hair, combing your hair, everything, making a breakfast for yourself, then having it, serving it, cleaning it, packing your lunch, and then leaving for your day, right? So all those things are somewhere are related to our activities that we follow in our day-to-day life. So when the children are observing these movements at home, it becomes easy for them also to adapt it. So you don't have to necessarily tell anything for the child, this is what you got to do, because the child has already seen the mother doing, father doing, grandparents doing, and there is a possibility of imitation. Most of our children do that, right? So they keep imitating, they just enact like, as if mama is making something, they just start to imitate. Now, all these activities become real. They're not synthetic. They are real activities that you need to give it for children. So when you give these activities for the younger children, that is between like 2 years to 6 years, which is considered to be as the most sensitive period for them, right? From the birth, it could be. But again, when children are like 2 years and 3 years, when you start giving these activities, what happens is like, the child starts to participate in the activities, which is there in his environment already. The child is already working with the environment, So when you go to the study desk, when you go to your study room, he sees his table. He knows to set the table. When he goes to the dining room, he knows to set the table there. He knows to actually set the dining table. So what happens there is like you're trying to give exercises which are going to be life savior exercises, I could say. It is very essential for us to lead our life every day. But for all of this, we need to have three important things. The activities needs to be in order, and we have to repeat those orders, and it has to give a lot of successive movements also, because the child will have to be working towards coordinating his movements, because his gracefulness is important for all of us, right? So what you can do is like, you need to have an environment which is very peaceful, quiet, I could say, very silent, serene, and good environment. Only when you give such environments, it becomes easy for the child to explore. Now, there are certain characteristics. Okay. So when I want to give these exercises, something very important you need to know is like, you need to work on the characteristics of these exercises. First of all, these exercises should be seen in our daily life. Okay. So daily life, what do? There are many things, right? You eat, then you clean your dishes, you fold your clothes, you wash your clothes, then you clean up your home, you clean up yourself, you wear clean clothes, so many activities. So what you need to do is like, you need to plan up for your daily activities. And second thing, if you're bringing some objects, okay, if you're bringing some objects, those objects the child should be familiar with. For example, if I bring an object from my home, that is this one. Okay, so I bought a bottle full of water. I got some bottles, so the child is already familiar with it. Now, in case if I bring another object, it could be like a plate. The child is already familiar with that because he's already seen it somewhere. And this object has to be real. I should not bring a toy water bottle. Okay? And this can also be breakable. Why I wanted to give a breakable item is when it is breakable, we will be extra careful. How many of you are very careful and don't give your kitchen utensils or the cutlery to others? I am very, very careful with that. So I do not want most of the time others to touch it or anything like that because you'll be very cautious with those because they're very delicate. And at the same time, they can be breakable too. Correct? So you always have to give children some of the items which are like can be breakable. So only when it is breakable, what happens? The child becomes even more cautious. They will be more careful. They will be more delicate in handling those materials. Okay. So this is where the child becomes what? Responsible enough. They become responsible enough. They become careful enough. They would start respecting that material and the usage of this. So this is one of the characteristics that you need to be making sure. And the last one is it should be functional also. I cannot just give a toy because it is not functional, right? But the materials will be functional. I can use my bottle to fill in water. I can use the bottle to fill in some juice. I can use the bottle to fill in some grains, many other things. Or even I can use it as a flower vase by doing a DIY and I could grow something with that. So it has to be functional. Only when these four characteristics are met, you go and tell children that now we are ready to work on our EPL skills. Okay, so let's get started with the first exercise. I would like to relate it to your home. Okay, so whenever there are guests at home, because this is how I would generally begin. So when you have guests at home, okay, when you have guests at home, what would you generally do? You ask them to sit. Okay, so where do they sit? You have some furniture. You have some furniture, right? So your guests are going to sit on the furniture. But if your furniture is not sufficient, say for example, your sofa could take up only like 8 people, what would you do? You bring in your dining chairs. Okay, so four, but you have 25 guests altogether. Very close, dear ones. So what would you do for the extra seating? What would you do for the extra seating?
Spread a mat.
You can spread a mat, definitely yes. So you could spread a mat. Is mat there at everybody's home? All of us do have a mat at home. So we have a mat or we have a rug or we have a carpet. Everybody has that, right? So we generally put that. But why didn't you tell your guests to sit on the floor, right? Why you had to put the rug? Why couldn't they sit on the floor?
If it is a less people, they can sit on the sofa. If it is more people, we can spread a mat and ask them to sit.
We are still working on more number of guests and our furniture is
Okay.
already full and they're all our dear guests. Okay,
Sitting on the floor is more comfortable, I think, ma'am.
sitting on the floor is comfortable. Most of them feel comfortable. If it's a family party, if it's a card party, if it's any kind of a smaller party at your home, kitty parties and other thing, how many of you all prefer sitting down? Many of us. Human tendency because we are more comfortable, we are more relaxed when we are crossing our legs and we are
More comfortable, ma'am.
comfortable, definitely yes. But why you have to spread a carpet? Why did you put a carpet? Are there
So
any,
courtesy.
Respecting the visitor.
what was it, Amina?
To show respect to the visitor.
Respect, yes. To show respect could be one thing because you did not want that. Courtesy, yes. Why courtesy is because the floor can be very cold.
Yeah.
And if people are sitting on the floor directly, probably the temperature will not make them very much comfortable. So you want your guests to be more comfortable. Even though they're sitting on the floor, you want them to be more comfortable. You want to respect their sanity, right? And at the same time, hygiene, right? So sometimes many of them are all walking around on the floor. So maybe it could not be hygienic also. So you are actually putting something over there. So that's the, what we do is like in our Montessori, you give independence to children to either sit on the chair or you tell them that they could sit on the floor. So either thing is okay. But you have to tell the child when you're sitting on the floor, you got to bring in your own rug or a mat. There are two kinds of mat. We bring a sitting mat. Okay, so when the child goes to the respective shelf over here, the teacher shows them where the rugs are kept. The child picks one, carries to his place. Maybe he wants to sit here. Now he comes over here. The child comes over here. And now he settles down. Okay, when he's settling it, there is a process, right? So what did the child first do? There is a process. So the child first carried the mat. The child first carried the mat. Then what did he do? He settled the mat down. Then he had to unroll the mat and then he had to sit. Correct? Once he is done, we are going to work on a reverse. The child will have to roll back. Then the child will have to pick up the mat. And then he will have to again carry the mat. And again, he has to settle the mat onto the shelf. Now, this is the process. The whole process of this, we call it as carrying a mat, rolling a mat, and unrolling a mat. Okay? So, we have to first do is like carry a mat. After you carry, you got to unroll a mat. And once you're done with your work, you got to roll back your mat. These are the 3 exercises that you first do in your EPL when you want to introduce the mat conception to the child. Mats and rugs are very, very essential. And you also tell to the child, if somebody has already spread a mat in the environment, that defines the space of a working culture. So that means if there's anything on the mat, nobody should go disturb because it's already reserved. For who? Maybe Money actually reserved this place. Maybe Amina reserved this place. Maybe Padma Priya reserved this place. So when I have the 4th student, Lobna will have to choose a different space altogether here because already 3 people have already chosen and we have to respect the space for it. Okay. So that also gives a freedom of choosing and it also gives us a freedom of like independence for the children also. So this is the first important task that you have to be working. So we definitely need something called as mat. How do we introduce the concept to the child? So rolling is important. So how do you do it? You get a mat and you start rolling a mat all together. So the mats can be of any sizes. The mats need not be of the same size. It can be of any size depending upon the activity that the child is involved into. Okay. If I have a large mat, it needs a lot of effort for me to roll in, but there would be certain error of controls also for me. Okay. So every time that I'm rolling as a teacher, I would be working towards making sure that the children are all rolling the mat properly. Now, how do I do that? So what is the most comfortable position for the children to sit down? What is the most comfortable position for the child to sit? Most of the children, how do they do? If my mat is here, the most of the comfortable position, if the child is sitting here, most of them kneel, correct? They kneel and sit. This is one of the most comfortable position for children. Whenever they are trying to roll or unroll a mat or doing any exercises, you observe this. Observe what is the comfortable. They will not be cross-legged. Most of them, they sit on their knees itself, and that's how they actually do it. And why is it so important? So as I mentioned earlier, we got to be giving this exercises so the child will be able to work on. Take a look at this particular exercise. So here also we have a student demonstrating sitting on the knee. Okay, so this is the most comfortable position as we all know. So the mat can be slightly larger depending upon the work that you have. The nature of the mat could be anything. It could be a jute mat, it could be a cotton mat, it could be the mat like this. Okay, so you can choose up any kinds of mats. So when you're trying to roll the mat, you got to pull it towards yourself as the mat is going away from you. Pull it towards yourself and try to roll a mat. Once you have rolled it, what you have to do with your hands, you got to lift that up and then you would carry the mat all together. Okay, so this becomes your first exercise of rolling a mat. And then you carry it to wherever it was actually kept and then you put it. So for unrolling, it's the same thing. So you get it back and you unroll it. Every time you're unrolling, you're pushing the mat away from you. So when you're rolling, you will pull it towards you. When you're unrolling, you'll push it away from you. That becomes your first exercise, which is related to your mat. The next one is something which is related to, chair. Because I also mentioned for children that, they can also sit on the chair. But do you think that we would have an extra chair like spread every time? No. We would have stacked somewhere, right? The chairs would have got stacked somewhere in one corner, or it would be somewhere else. But what are you planning to do over here? There was a process I said. So you know where is the chair stacked and what are you going to be working now? You are going to be carrying the chair from this position to this position. Now, how do you carry the chair? How do you carry the chair? Anybody has a chair? I have a very heavy one I cannot carry. If you're using a light weighted chair, you can just show it to me. Whoever's got a very light chair, you can show it to me. So we have Amina. Amina is going to show you how to carry a chair. Okay? Just carefully observe what Amina is. She's using both her hands. The left hand on the top side, it's got a hole there, so it's much more comfortable for her. She can actually put her other 4 fingers, and she has taken the other hand all together and she carries it from one place to another. And look at the little boy trying to copy the movements of the mother. So she did not say anything. She did not say anything, but still the child wanted to demonstrate. That is also a part of one starts to copy or imitate your movements. Now, did the child see this somewhere at the home? Definitely yes. Everybody will have chairs at home. The child would have observed everybody carrying the chair from one place to another and keeping it. So when Amina did that, she carried it and at the same time, she settled the chair also. So she did not have a bang on the chair, but she carefully placed the chair without hurting herself, without hurting her son, and also without hurting the floor. Correct? So Amina was very careful when she actually settled the chair down. So this is one of the important exercise that you need to be doing. Is like the next exercise was relatively called as carrying a chair. So we need to carry a chair from one place to another. And what is the material that we need? We need a material which is just a chair. And when you're using it in your classes, you have to make sure that the chair is child-sized and the child is able to pick the chair. This was exactly like how Amina carried, like one hand on the top and the other hand down. And when you're settling it down, be as gentle as possible. We should not be hearing a bang sound or a note altogether. So this is very important. Now you have a chair. What's next important for me is like, if it was on the floor, I was more happier because I could have my working mat and a sitting mat. The child was sitting here and he was started to work. But now, since I'm sitting on a chair here, can I bend down and work on the floor? Not possible. So what should I probably have? I should probably have a table, correct? So I need to also have a table. Now the child is choosing an environment wherein he is going to be working on a table, sitting on a chair. So I need to also carry a table. So table, I will not ask anybody to carry it. I will show you on the clipping how well that you could actually carry a table from one place to another. So you got to be lifting up the table, again, which is going to be of the child sized. You're going to be putting your thumbs on that and then the remaining fingers, you lift it up from the floor to the parallel to the ground, and then you start walking around to whichever position that you actually wanted, and you start moving from one place to another. Once you settle down, carrying this particular table, that is when you are done with your exercise and you have already settled this exercise. Now, why do you think that we need to be working with carrying a table, carrying a chair from one place to another? Why do you think? Why was it so important for all of us? Because we wanted children to actually work on movements. We want.
Ma'am,
yes.
Carry means move, is it? Same.
Yes. Carry means you will carry it, like hold something and you carry, and then you see, what I'm trying to say is, if I have this printer, I have my printer here. If I want to take this printer and keep it that side, what do? I lift it up. So that means I'm carrying it. It's already there in my hand. And I'm just standing here. Will the printer go like that? I don't have any magical skills, right? If I tell abracadabra, my printer go there, it doesn't go. So what next I got to be doing is, I need to move, correct? So I need to move, carrying the printer, what I have it in my hand. And when I'm dropping it down or when I'm settling it, so we use the terms like, you settle down. How do you settle? I take this entire thing and I slowly settle it down so that I don't drop it on myself, first thing. Second, I don't drop the material itself so that it will break. Third is like, I don't drop it on somebody else so that, I would hurt them also. So you're trying to give respect for yourself, for somebody else, as well as onto the material and the floor or the place where you're going to be settling down. So you carry that object. So carrying is nothing but moving from one place to another. You carry it from one. Now, why did we do that why did we carry is because we wanted children to actually work on something very important. So that's our movements. Okay. So we wanted children to actually move. Okay. Whatever movements was necessary in what? In carrying any particular object and trying to place that object in a particular place without what? Damaging whom or without damaging himself, or I could say others, or the table or the place. So this is important for me. So when I'm doing this exercise, this is my direct purpose. Why I got to be doing this exercise? So that has a purpose, right? So this was my purpose. But indirectly also, I was also working on a couple of other things. So indirectly, I was also helping on movements, the child's movements. I was checking whether the child's movements are precise. Okay. The more exercises you give for the child to carry, indirectly, you're also working on something called as development of the child's muscles. Okay. You're also working on the muscles because now the child has got enough strength. When they're trying to do this, when they're carrying this from one place to another, they're very concentrated. So their concentration is on the peak level because you observe this. You give a glass of water to your child and ask them to move from one place to another. The child will be so careful. He will be only concentrating on that so that the water does not spill. So this is really important when we're trying to work. Okay. So that was your carrying a chair, carrying a, what I could say, carrying a table exercises that we actually have it in our classes. So from which age can you start is another question. So you can begin with 2.5 years, as younger as possible that your children are. You can begin and you could give it for your child. Okay. Now, the next thing that we have to have is like, you settle down all of that. The next thing is related to your tray. Just again, let's go back to your guests. Okay, so now your guests are there at home and you want to serve them something, say probably a glass of water as soon as they arrive or a bottle of water. But then what is the thing that you're going to keep it on? You're going to be using something, right? What is that? What is it? Will you just give a glass of water like that? Or you serve everything? So now you need to also help, or you need to also work on the next exercise, which is about carrying of a tray. Okay. Why this is important in our Montessori is, now say for example, if I had all this, say if I have a tray and if I had many things to carry, now what happens here is like, if I don't give a child a tray, he might carry everything like this, duster, the mouse, like this, and he might start walking around, correct? So there are chances for the child to drop everything. In this entire process, if I had something very delicate, something which was very breakable, it would break. So what I do is like, I give him a tray and then the child puts everything onto the tray and now he carries to whichever place that he actually wants it. So it becomes much more easy for a child also to work. So when we are helping the child to work on carrying a, what is essential is like we also give him some directions that you need to carry a tray parallel to the ground. Why parallel to the ground? When the tray is the object side will not fall. Now, what if I had all the objects and if I would have carried my tray like this, maybe it will go down again, right? So we have to tell them the tray will be parallel to the ground. So you should not be carrying. So you should not be holding it like this also, very close to your body, nothing. You give them exercises like wherein you can just stretch out your arms and then you start carrying from one place to another place. So this is one exercise that you can work for a child. Okay. So that's related to your tray. And what kind of trays you can give is like, some of the Montessori trays will have a hole here. Just like Hamina had a hole in the chair, right? So you could put your fingers through it and you could hold it. It gives a firmer grip. So most of the Montessori trays are like that itself, wherein you would be able to give for the children the way it needs to be working. Okay. So that was related to your, holding a tray, I could say, or I could say just carrying a tray also, I could say. That was very important and essential. So any kind of trays you can give them. So there's nothing that you have to give wooden tray and other thing, any kind of tray. But make sure that the child is like good enough in holding a tray. So your pincer grip, we call this as palmar arches. Okay, so when you're trying to arch in your fingers like this, it's called the palmar archer. Okay, so you got to arch in with good stability is what you're going to be holding the tray. And then you move from one place to another. When you're moving, you're carrying your tray from one place to another. Now, why do we do this exercise? As I mentioned earlier, because you wanted to carry so many things all together into your tray. Is there a purpose? Definitely yes. You want the child to carry the objects, whatever he wanted on a tray so that he wouldn't damage the objects, he wouldn't damage himself, he wouldn't damage others, nor the tray itself. Indirectly, I'm still working on the development of muscles. And when the child is trying to carry from one place to another, he is more concentrating on the exercises. Is there any age limit? I can give this right from 2 years. Okay, so some children, some say it is too early, but it's okay. You can give them at the earliest and they can stack all their toys into a tray and they can move around in the house, settle down wherever that they would like to have it. Okay, so that was on the tray. Okay, the next thing now is like, when you want to, when you generally have jugs and pitchers at home, right? And you would fill that with juice and other thing. So the next exercise, note it down, it's called carrying a jug. Okay, so you would definitely have a jug at your home, which would have a, what do you call, a handle and a tiny spout, I could say, wherein you could fill in some water or some kind of a liquid in it. Okay, so what you will do is like, you can have a jug which is of water, but most of them, they wouldn't give any of the liquid thing at the beginning. It's only like where you're just giving the child to carry this jug. So when you're giving this jug, since it's got water in it, you would be expecting that the child not to drop it down, not to also to make sure it will not spill any water out. Okay, when he is not dropping out, he will not damage the jug, neither himself nor others. And we are still working on coordination of movement and development of our muscles, and we're also working on concentration. But here, we're also looking at other things, like how, when the child is like, see, the jug is not closed, the jug is not closed. When the child is like looking inside the jug, he could also see something. What he can see? He could also see what he could see.
Reflection of his face.
Yes, he could see sometimes reflection of his face. Sometimes he could see the water, movements of the water. Water. He could see the water movements, right? The movements of the water, like how the water is like wobbling or waving. He could also observe. Ask the child to look and then walk. So he would definitely have that kind of an energetic thing to actually walk around and see around. So it's going to be amazing. So the jug that you choose, if it is colorful, it's good. At the beginning when you're giving, because the jugs are really huge and they're like very heavy, make sure you give them something which is lightweighted. You can, instead of giving a ceramic jug, you can probably give any jug which is slightly of a lightweighted material. You could choose it up and you could give him such jugs. But make sure the jug has a handle. Okay, so handle. If it's too heavy, you need to support your hand. Okay, so if it's too heavy, what would you do? If the jug was too heavy for me to carry like this, you also support it with your other hand. I've just imagine I'm holding the handle here. I will just support with my other hand when I'm trying to move from one place to another. Okay, so take a look over here. What we generally do over here is like, you have to choose up a jug which has a handle and a tiny spout. So pouring becomes easy. Okay, when the next exercise is when we have it. So always have your thumb on top of it. Since the jug is humongous and huge, I cannot lift it up altogether with my one hand. I always give my left hand as a support. Now it also depends on the dexterity. It also depends upon the dexterity. Which handed person are you? Are you a right-handed person or are you a left-handed person? Okay, so anything that talks about lifting and pouring, another thing, also talks about dexterity. Dexterity is whether you are a left-handed person or you are a right-handed person. How will you find out? How will you find out? Is there anything heavy next to you? Is there anything slightly heavy next to you? Just look around. Anything which is heavy, which you can lift with one hand. Okay, so I'm just looking around me. Maybe the water bottle only is heavy for me. Okay, so when I lift it up, the first time, okay, Padma Priya ma'am is lifting the vase up. Okay, I want everybody to lift up something. I want to see your hand. Just show me your hand. Yeah. So glass. Okay, Amina has given the bag. Lobna, Monica. Okay, most of you lifted with what hand? With your right hand. That means we're all right-handed people and our dexterity is related to right. Probably you all are writing in right hand only, right? What if a child is picking most of the times with the left hand? So that means he has good coordination of movement with his left hand. So then the child's dexterity is going to be left and probably he uses most of the time. Now again at the same time, if you've got a bottle, try opening the bottle. Show it to me and open the bottle. Open the bottle. See, the difficult part was to open the knob, right? Or the cork. So we all did it with the right-handed. So that means the pressure of what we applied was through right. If a child would have done this way, the heavier things, the child is again going to be a left-handed person. Observe on this. You can give them clicks, you can give them clay molding, another thing. In case if he's using most often his left hand, probably the child is a left-handed person. And then you need to also encourage him to write it with left hand itself. So this is one mistake sometimes we generally forget, we neglect, and we go by default writing using our right hand only. But always check on the dexterity. Some children are blessed. They have equal strengths for both the hands. Okay, they are ambidextrous at that.
Yes, ma'am. My son used to do the same thing.
Yes, so they would be ambidextrous, right? So that we would be definitely blessed to have such children, and they would be more, like very proactive because both the sides of their brain starts to work at that particular time, and it helps them towards writing a lot of activities, and it makes it much more easier. So that's one of the things that you have to be working and checking when your children are carrying a mug, carrying a tray, or trying to pour something from one mug to another mug. We got to be working on those particular skills. The next exercise after this is related to your, I could say is on, what is it? Carrying sharp objects. Okay, so we all have sharp objects, right? So we do have sharp objects at home. What all could be your sharp objects? I could have, say, my scissor could be a sharp object.
Knife,
Knife, definitely yes. Knife could be a sharp object that you would definitely have.
pins.
Can be sharper objects, definitely yes. And maybe some of the tools, in case if you have some tools, those
Pins.
things could also be a sharp object. Now, how do I carry these sharp objects is something which we need to be looking on to. When I'm trying to carry this, always the sharper part should be held by me. And this is how I would extend it or give it to another person. So when the other person receives it, he would receive the blunt side of the sharper object. So even though if there is an accident of you banging onto someone, it will not hurt the others. Now, what if you were carrying the things like this and you are walking in the class like this? Accidents do happen in class, correct? So children are always running around, walking around, and there could be some kind of a minor accidents, like where they go bang on others, and there are more chances for we hurting or the children hurting the other children. So you need to encourage them to hold on to the sharper objects this particular way and then to give out on the other way. Okay, now not only this, we might also have multiple other kinds of sharper objects, like, in case if there are any tools in our classes which we use it every time to for any kind of exercises, we can also give, like, it could be screwdriver, it could be pencils, it could be pen or anything. So you take all those sharper objects, keep it on the table, and you tell the child to carry it from one place to another. So always the sharper edge towards you, and then the blunt edge towards the child itself. So never ever allow them to actually hold it like that. Be it any tool. So give them any tool so they understand it by visualizing itself. Yes, this could be sharpful, and this could also hurt the other students when I'm trying to carry. And no exercises like playing around when they're trying to carry something like that. Okay, they have to hold it very steadily and move from one place to another. It could be any tools, a screwdriver, a cutting plier, or any other instrument. It could be even pencils, guys. Even pencils and pointed pens also, the child should be carrying it on this particular way. Now, after we do a signature, you need to always hold back the pen on the other side and then give them, especially this tiny needles, tiny toothpicks and all of that. The child should be not holding it in the other way. They have to hold it in this way. So this is one simple exercises that you need to be always looking for, and you need to educate your children, like, why they have to be carrying a particular sharper objects in that particular way. So is it important for us to carry? Why is it so important? Definitely yes. We need to be doing so that, the child is aware of two things. One is like why we do this, because we need to give an awareness that the objects can be sharp, and when we are carrying, they can also be dangerous. Okay, so you are also giving them that it could be dangerous. So that's the reason what we always do is like we close and keep it. So most of the scissors do get a cap. Most of the knives do get a cap because they were very sharp. So you would get a lot of child-friendly scissors and the child-friendly knives. Okay, so you could close them and you could keep it into your classes, because you will definitely need these tools to perform a lot of exercises like cutting papers or cutting something. You definitely need it. You cannot avoid the materials, but only thing is like make sure that you buy the child safe real material so that the child is able to work on those exercises. Okay, so let's go to the next exercise. The next, I'm going a little faster. Am I going a little fast, or it's okay, the speed? Because there are so many in EPL. Am I, is that the good speed? Okay.
It is okay.
Okay. So that's fine, right? The speed is fine, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. The next material, what we have is books. Okay. So before books, let me tell about the door. Okay. I wanted to ask a very personal question over here. I don't mind asking it. It's okay. How many of you all get angry? Be honest. How many of you all, angry is a human emotion. We get angry. How many of you all can control your anger?
Me.
How many of you all, Lavna, you can't control your anger? Okay.
Ma'am, not all the time, sometimes.
Okay, I'm just telling you, there is a saturation for every human being. We at the beginning we control, and when it goes beyond, there are certain things that you do. Okay, I'll start with myself. When I'm too angry, I'll start to work more. I'll start to clean more. People will understand when she's cleaning more, when she's doing more. I'll clean up my cupboard, clean up my kitchen. When I'm doing more work, it's like she's super angry. So people can judge when I'm working more that I'm very angry. Okay.
And
What is one thing that you do it when you're
Bang the door.
bang the door? Okay, Padma Priya ma'am is going to bang the door. She's so honest. Have you ever done this once in your lifetime? Most of the time we do that. We bang the door. Now here, did you think what did the other person feel when you bang the door? We never think about it. We are angry. So that's our so I just bang the door and I lock the door and I'm upset. I cry or I do anything. What about others?
I'll be silent.
But the
yeah,
object,
Some
exactly.
are silent.
Ma'am, I shout.
Some shout. Okay.
throwing, ob-
Uh-huh.
throwing objects.
No. Angry when I'm angry on money. This is what teachers used to do when we used to not listen to them. They used to write on the chalk pieces, right? So they used to break the chalk piece and they used to throw on us.
Correct.
That was one of the traditional old school way of doing it. We throw things. So now maybe
Yes, ma'am.
what if I'm angry on money? I throw this duster. Right? So that's also a human tendency. It depends. We do not know because we do not have an emotional control on ourselves. We throw things, and the things we don't even see. It could be the most precious one, delicate one, expensive one. We don't care. We're like, okay, I have to throw it. I have to throw. How many of you have regretted after doing all this? I shouldn't have done that. I should have controlled it. Okay, most of us. I could say all of us we would regret until you're a very, very brat, I could say, or a very spoiled one who does not have value for emotions. Until that, all of us we regret doing it. But why I wanted to tell you this is like, when parents we do this exercise, especially banging the door, it's considered to be not so very courteous, not so very graceful. It's considered to be a very bad manner. It totally depends on your mannerism. It is a strict no. Okay. So at the same time, intentionally we don't do it. Padma Priya ma'am did this only when she was angry. But other times, has it ever happened that by chance that you have banged the door, you are not angry, but still somehow you have banged the door? Sometimes we bang the door, right? If somebody is there, what is the immediate thing that you tell to that person? I'm so sorry. I banged the door. Okay, it could be any reason. You were about to close it, but you banged it. If you don't say sorry immediately, the other person takes it in a wrong way. Oh, this person did not like me visiting her house. That's why she banged the door on me. They make up their own stories. Agree on that? Yes. Door is very, very sentimental to most of us, especially to the humans. It's considered not to bang the door. So you need to be, even when you are opening the door and closing the door, try to be as gentle as possible. Do not be really rude because that shows how very angry you are. Okay, so people opening and closing the door. Okay, so when the guests are arriving, some of them they open very little so that there's no space for the guest also to squeeze in. How many of you will do that? I'm sorry for asking such personal questions, but you just have to tell me. Yes, no, okay. There are different styles. There are different people have a different ways of opening the door. They stand here. There's a knock on the door. We open the door, and we're just standing there only. We open the door, and we move only little, and then there's a little space for our guests to walk in. Okay. And there are other people, they open the door. If it's a guest, they move a little, they open it completely, they ask them to come in. Some of them, they do not close the doors immediately. Maybe after 1 second, 2 seconds is what, once the guest is settled, is what they go close the door. That's considered to be very good. Okay. And some, what we do is like, we don't even open the door. Safety, security, all of us are worried. We do not know if anybody is coming like that. We just take him and we'll peep in and then we will shut the door like that. Different instances, different cases can be there. But always be very, very cautious when you're trying to open and close the door, because it can reflect the way that a person is. A person can be judged just by the way that they open and close the doors also. So whenever there is a knock on the door, hold the handle very gently. Do not make a lot of noise. Try to open your door. See, and you have to open the door completely when you're trying to receive someone. The same way goes to closing the door. When you're closing, just don't go bang. Close it without creating a bang. And also make sure it is completely closed. So opening the door is like you got to open your door completely and then you allow your person, and closing has to go closely. And why do we do this in our classes? In our classes, it's very important because children sometimes they forget how to open and how to close. And if there are any other children who are rushing in between, it can actually hurt them. Whenever the other child is trying to close very quickly, and meanwhile the other one is just trying to pass, it can actually hurt them. Especially, we have seen, especially in my school, like there was one incident wherein the child was coming and the other one just closed the door. But thankfully, nothing happened. There was a slight bruise. Okay. If God forbidden, if the child would have banged it so badly, there could have been chances of cutting the fingers of fingernails. So that's the reason. Always be very, very cautious in opening and closing the doors. It's very essential for us that we do it in a very great, what I could say is like in a nice fashion. Okay. So door is very, very personal. So you need to be really cautious in trying to do this. Okay. So why do we do that? Because they should know to open the door and to close the door. Now, when we do this, we also teach children about some skills. Okay. The latch, how to open the latch or how to close the latch. There are incidences in case if you have smaller children, they go inside a room, they close it, and they do not know how to open it back. There are chances. Have you ever had any such incidences in your entire life period that your children were locked up in some room? They went.
Yes, ma'am. My younger kid did that.
How did you get them back?
Then, with the help of screwdriver and all that, we opened from outside only. Then I was asking him to open from inside, just to turn him, but he did not open. He was on the sofa.
Okay. Okay, so the child got scared that he was locked up. Anybody else had this situation?
My daughter also once in the bathroom she locked.
My God.
And we knocked the door and tried to open from she locked it there.
Okay, Amina, what was your situation?
He locked himself in the toilet.
He locked you?
No, himself.
Himself. Okay, he locked himself in the washroom. And how did you work on that?
We got someone to break the door.
You got someone to break the door. Okay. So most of the cases, it's like, we have to break the door or we have to call someone and external help. There could be an injury to the children also sometimes in case if the space was very small. And what if during the process of breaking, if the child comes very closer, there could be multiple choices of the child getting hurt. You also hurt your door or your door got spoiled and so many things. And this emotional
pressure and you get scared.
You're very scared. You're panicking for yourself. You're panicking for your child's emotional trauma. You never know, right? So that's the reason whenever we are introducing certain things, you need to also tell children to open and close the door. And whatever are the latches You need to teach the child so that, you know, they can open the latch, close the latch, open it, close it multiple times. So whichever place that you are, the first thing that in your house you're going to teach is like, ask your child to open, close, open, close, open, close. By mistake, it gets locked. They can bring some chair or stool, stand over them, open, close. With yourself, you got to monitor, you have to teach your child. So you would also have another thing which is called as the lock box in Montessori. I don't have that image to show it to you. So there would be a lock box. It will have lots of locks and latches, and it will also have keys. So you can teach the child to open the lock, to close the lock. That's the first thing that you have to do it as a safety measure. So especially for all the children of all the age groups. And teachers will also be very careful to lock it, the lock which is reachable to the child. Okay. Most of them, they don't lock their classes. It's always the push knob that the child can open it up with this particular way. But still, if you have a different kind of any other kind of locks and other things in your classes, you have to work accordingly. Teach them to open and close it also. So that's also essential. And the next important thing is about the book. How many of your children tear pages? And you give them a book, or how many of you are worried to give an expensive book to your child? You're worried to give books for your child. You're like, no, I will handle. No, I will turn the pages. No, you don't turn around. I'm going to do that. Why, Adeline? Why are you so worried?
Because they do like this.
They will write. Okay, one reason is they write something on the book. Adeline?
They scribble on the book.
They scribble on the book. Okay.
They tear the pages also.
Tear the pages also. What could be the other reasons?
They'll pour water in the book.
Okay, they can pour water. Yeah, they can pour some liquids on it, and then the pages can get spoiled. Multiple reasons. You have your own reasons to justify why you don't want to give a book. But how many of you are confident to give a book? Money man is confident. Okay, Money, why are you so confident to give a book?
Before giving the book, I will give instructions how to carry that book and how to open the pages and close the book and all.
Oh, wow, wonderful. So this solved our problem. Okay, so we need to get into our next exercise, wherein we will tell the child how to carry a book. Once you carry a book, the next thing is like how to open the pages of the book, how to turn around the pages. Okay, so you should also give exercises how to turn around the pages in a book, and then how to close the book and how to keep it back. Okay, once you work on these particular cases and then the child starts to respect the book, you will not be worried enough to give any kind of books, because you already gave them certain rules of why you need to be doing, what are the things that you have to be working with that, right? So those are some of the important things. I could say like very important thing that you have to give it to your child at the very younger ages itself, wherein you have to teach them what's the title. You show them first. Okay, so the title of the book, and then go to the top right corner, put your index finger, try to open with that. That's the most common way everybody does it. And you're opening your book with the support of your entire hand, and you can actually place it down. Then go page by page, just at the top of the page, and then gently scooping it through, and then you go to the next page. So you do for all of that. So this is the first stage. So you have to finger run through the entire page when you're trying to open. And since the pages can flip over, you will open your hand on it as you're trying to turn around the pages. So this is one thing that you have to give it to your child right from the beginning. And some of the children do take saliva and turn around. How many of your class children do that? I'm sorry for asking such nasty questions. They do that.
Mom, I will show you my yesterday my son.
Oh.
His friend, he do like that for his book. See.
Yeah, he has already torn it, is it?
Yes, like that. See.
In childhood, I also did that thing.
Yeah, Yes. Yes, Lorna, you can show it. You can show it. The pages are totally like torn around, so that is how the friends and children actually do it, because they are not very much introduced to the way that the books needs to be handled. So what you could do is like, you can also sit with one of the book, and you can also ask your child to copy your movements. When you are trying to open the book in that particular way, the child will also be careful enough in handling the book. So when we handle the books very roughly, then the child will also be copying our movements sometimes. And always you can open it either down, or you can open it from the top as I showed. That becomes easy for you to actually work with. Now, if at all, if there are any page numbers, you could flap through the book also, because of the page number, and then you follow from there. If there are 1 or 2 pages, you follow it up from there itself, and then you start opening and that we want to be working with our children also, because books are very, very important, and turning pages in a particular book is really important because it gives them some kind of coordination of movement. It also helps them on certain characteristics. What could be the characteristics? The child is being careful to handle, and at the same time, they're showing gentleness. Agree? They're being very gentle when we are trying to turn our pages. Now, at the same time, is any child opening the page very roughly, I would say, so when they're trying to open, opening like this, where there are creases.
They will use full hand to open like this.
Full hand like to open also.
Yes.
The more younger, when they're trying to open like that.
After that, they will look and they will spread like this.
The full hand, especially the younger children, when they're 2 years, 2.5, 3 years, they do not know how to open a page. And also another exercise, if at all, if you give them to tear any paper, they do not have this grip. So they tear like this. Tear a paper also like this. So you have to use then hold it and then tear it. Give them smaller strips at the beginning so that it becomes easy for the child to tear it. Okay?
I have examples, mom. See.
What was that, Lobna?
I have examples like that. What kids do.
Tearing, is it? Okay, amazing. He does a lot of tearing. He does a lot of tearing is what I'm asking.
Yes, his friend yesterday was do like that for his book.
Oh, yes. Okay. So you can tell them this is not the way. So what you can do is like to avoid this, you tell them now put back all the papers and I want to see the nice branded page. You tell them you did this tearing. I'm giving you a task where you're going to be putting all of them back. You give them that task. The next day they will not tear paper. Okay. So why I'm telling you this is when we had this in our class or in our school, when we give exercises like this, if at all, if you're tearing any papers, we ask them to stick it. How will they stick it? Not possible. Tell them unless and until you are sticking this, you cannot go to the next task or the next work. And the child tries to figure and then they'll be like, ma'am, it's impossible. I cannot do that. And you tell them that that's the reason I asked you to be very careful and just let go from there. By this time, the child would have felt sorry because you're introducing him to say sorry. So are you feeling sorry right now? And then they're like, yes. So what you should say? Sorry. Okay. So once the child says sorry, the teacher forgives. And then you tell them, should not be sharing or do not use not, all of that. You see, that's the reason I keep telling not to tear papers. The other thing what children have is like scribbling on the walls. Scribbling on the walls. Okay, so this is one thing that we see common with the younger children, that they scribble on the walls. When they scribble on the walls, you tell them, I'm going to give you a bowl full of water and a sponge and a cloth. Clean the wall. Because my wall was sparkling, there were no scribbles. Now you've scribbled, it's okay. We can clean it up. And that the child should not feel that as a punishment, right? You should never make them feel as a punishment. They have to feel responsible. Yes, I did it. So what should we do? Let's clean up. Start singing a song. Clean up, clean up. Come, let's clean up. Okay, so what you do, you also carry a jug, you also carry some water. You show them how to clean it. They understand how painful it is to clean up. Oh, my mom is doing so much of a cleanup activity. It is so painful. Once they start understanding that this is going to be really difficult for me to actually work on, children will not scribble. The attempt to scribble will slowly come down. It's going to come down. Okay, so these are all preliminary exercises, because at home, when there's something dirty, we clean up. When somebody poured something, we clean up. When something we spilled, we clean up, because we want to make everything neat and sparkly again, right? So that's also a part of our preliminary exercises that I could say. The next exercise is like you have so many containers at your home, right? So we have so many containers at our home. So we would be performing some of the actions with the help of those containers. It's like we do open, we do close. What could be your containers? We can have bottles sometimes. We can have boxes. We can have containers. We can have pouches. We can have bags, many things. But if you want to put something, you open it, you put something, then you take out something and then you close it. So we would be performing on some of the actions like open and close most of the time. When children do get lunch for the class, what's the usual thing the teacher goes and does? The teacher goes and opens everybody's lunch boxes, because you're a dear teacher, right? Help the child so that the child can eat everything. And once the child has eaten everything, since you're a teacher, you go close all their boxes. How many of you have done this? Most of the teachers, we do that, right? So we want children during the lunchtime, we go and help, because we are dealing with the most vulnerable age, 2 years, 3 years. They do not know to open boxes. They always come back to you, ma'am, can you please open my water bottle? Can you please open my lunch box? You always teach and help them. But when we teach them to open up their own lunch boxes, to open their own water bottle, most of our task gets reduced. So when children are sitting in a circle in the lunch time in the cafeteria or whichever is the area, in Montessori schools, they have a small eating section, eating area, wherein a group of children can be seated together. They help one another or they help each other. They try to open the boxes, open the bottles, they eat their food, they close their boxes. And you also make sure that the containers are not leaking. This is also important because most of the children, they do not close it completely and they wet their bags. And the books are wet, they come with a soiled bag altogether. So we need to be encouraging the child to open and close the box so that, they are quite independent enough in making sure that the objects have actually been opened and closed. So as a teacher, what I do generally is like, first I would go with the bottles because bottles are a good way to introduce some of the exercises. So what we can do is like collect any kind of bottles in a tray or anything, and then collect different kinds of corks and the sizes also. So when we have those kinds of different materials all together, it becomes a very gentle one or a challenging one. Let the child experience. See, for everything, you should not forget your sensorial exercises, what we did yesterday. Experience through your senses, find out which bottle's cork is which one, try to open it and try to close it. So we are going to be working only on 2 actions over here. We're trying to open the bottle and we're trying to close the bottle. The bottles could be of any size, any shape, any color. It doesn't matter. Am I going to be blindfolded? No, I have to see it and I have to do it. But every time I'm doing it, I'm just concentrating on some of the skills of how do I open it? How do I close it? So this is something that you will have to be working on. Take the bottle with the help of your pencil grip, try to open it and try to close it. So this could be one of the way that you do it. You open the lid and you keep it. Now you can now start off with your other bottles. You finish opening. You're doing only one action. You did opening of that bottle. You kept it down. Then you try with the third bottle. You open the bottle. You keep it down. Once you were done with everything is what you perform the next operation of closing it. Now through the visual sense, you understand this cork could be for this bottle itself. The child understands it and then they go put it. So this is one of the exercise that you can actually work with. But if you want to give more challenges to children, and if you want them to work with more number of materials altogether, you can have a basket full of certain exercises wherein the child can actually get a lot of experience. Now you're going to be collecting a lot of varieties. It can be boxes, it could be bottles, it could be pouches, it could be zippers, multiple things. Now you collect all of that. It's a totally different experience altogether for me, but I'm still working on one operation of opening and closing. So you need to be giving. Now, why do we give that? Because the child will use work pouches. The child will have to use some smaller boxes to open some of the Montessori cards or anything like that, which is stored in boxes and containers, for which they will not be able to call the teacher every now and then. So they become confident and also. So the teacher introduces all this material. It could be in multiple ways. Like say if the mats and rugs, some people snap it all around and keep it. So they should also know how to open that also and how to close that particular knob also. And then they roll that mat and then they spread that particular mat and they start opening the lids. Now these are all for the lunch boxes. So you can have different kinds of lids altogether. So you could open it and you could keep it. So you begin with the child's own lunch box at the beginning. And then different other kinds of pots or pans, anything you can collect it. Make sure that the child is able to open it and at the same time, try to open it. So you can have jewelry boxes, pouches, any sorts of things. Just perform, just give those children the activity of trying to open and trying to close. The lids can be different. The zips could be different. It can have buttons, it could have snaps, it could have Velcro, it could have chain, it could have rope, it could have ribbon. We are not bothered about that, but we're only helping the child to open and close. It could be bottles, it could be boxes, it could be anything else. Okay, so that was one of the exercises that we would be working on, trying to open and close certain things, which was essential. Then the next one is folding clothes. Now, again, when we give children something to fold, again, it depends upon our culinary activities, right? So whenever we want to set a table, we definitely need to use a napkin, correct? So when we are setting a table, we need to use a napkin and we fold the napkin triangular or we fold the napkin square or we fold the napkin rectangular. And each one has got the different responses like why we have to be doing it. It could be one fold, two fold, three fold, and it could be multi-folds also. Now, when we are giving exercises like that, in Montessori, we would have material called as napkins itself. Like we say folding napkins or folding clothes. But before that, the child should know about the folding practices. Okay. So it comes with a versatility of colors. Now, at the same time, it also comes with versatility of the different kinds of folds altogether. Now, what do we do over here is like, this is a small tray that you can actually bring in. And I said like, we have multiple ways of clothes that you can actually have it. So take any of the thing. The first operation you're going to be working is called unfolding the mats. You can see the tiny dots on that. So hold on to the edges of the mat. Can you all carefully see the dotted lines are there? So you will hold on to the edges and you try to fold on towards that. Now there's another line there. So you put your finger on that and then you try to fold it back here. So how many folds we just did now? We did a 2-fold fold. And this was a squared pattern altogether. Once you're done with, you have multiple other colors. You can try on, give more number of colors also. Now, when I'm working with this, it's a different color altogether. So you can give children also a choice of colors that they're going to give. There are lines. So you either go horizontal, you go vertical, up to you. I would like to go horizontal. Now, what's the next step? Put your finger on the center of it and try to flap over the other side. So the folding has to happen right on towards this. So we did what kind of a fold? We did a valley fold. We call this as a valley fold. And you could also do a triangular fold also on this. Okay. So you're done. Just again, keep it back onto your folding tray itself. And slowly this gives an activity for children there where they could fold their own napkins. They could fold their handkerchiefs. They could fold their t-shirts, trousers, all of that. Okay. So folding exercise is also essential for us. And that's going to be helpful for the child to actually work on their coordination of movements and things like that. The next exercise that is very important for me to work is related to something called as spooning. Now, we all are like, we all cook, right? How many of you all cook? All of us? How many of you will cook? How many of you are an amazing cook? Monica? Okay. Mani? Okay. Amazing cook. Padma Priya ma'am. Why are you hesitating? Proudly. You have to...
Me too.
Yeah, me too. Okay, Namrata. Then you... Right? Every time when you're cooking, so we take some ingredients with the help of spoon, right? We take the ingredients with the help of the spoon, but what is the action that you're going to be performing is spooning, right? When you try and spoon, I'm not talking about scooping, we're just spooning. We're transferring something from somewhere to somewhere with the help of a spoon. So you're trying to generally work on an action called transferring. So we would be using two bowls which are identical. We take up a spoon and we fill one bowl with some material and we transfer whatever is there in this bowl to another bowl. Okay, we are transferring something from one bowl to another bowl with the help of spoon. And that process is nothing but spooning. Now, what am I taking? I'm taking some grains at the beginning to spoon. Okay, so let's see how we actually do it and why is it so essential for me to actually spoon up the grains. Okay, so you generally need what? You need a spoon and then you need what? You need what else? You need a spoon.
Bowls.
Two bowls.
And you also need a tray.
Tray.
Because you
Tray
don't...
some grains.
Yeah,
Grains.
tray and you also need
Grains.
some grains.
Yes.
So you start scooping. Okay, so you start spooning everything and then you start transferring from one bowl to another. In this process, I also spilled some of the grains down. So we don't have to worry about it right now. Okay, so we're going to see that. That's going to be your error of control.
No, ma'am, when we give to children, no, first they'll
Same.
complete
Yes.
whatever down part, they'll take
Yeah.
it and they'll put it in the bowl. After that only they'll
Yes,
continue
yes,
that
yes. Same
activity.
thing, same thing.
Yeah.
We have to give the instructions to them.
No problem, no problem. What you would do then
Ma'am, is it okay, that one?
That's fine. That's fine. See, the error of control for me over there was the child will be able to pick up everything, right? The child was ready to pick everything and it did not let anything down there. So
Yes.
to end also, the child should be able to pull back everything, pick back everything and put it there. So that's the reason we also kept a tray underneath. We also kept it so that the child can pick up all those grains and they could put it all together. So this was, yeah.
Because of that, they will stop the activity and they will
That's
do
fine.
that.
That's fine. See, it is again related to completing the activity. As a teacher, if you stop that, this task becomes more challenging.
Okay.
It becomes more challenging. So you don't interrupt them. You just let them. You tell them whatever I have it inside, you need to transfer it. And I can't say anything down. So you need whatever was down also, you need to pick up that and put it back there. Now here, when I'm trying to transfer from a left bowl to a right bowl, I'm going to do a left to a right transfer. So this is from left bowl to a right bowl transfer. So I'm going to be working on a left-right kind of a direction, okay, from left to right. Once I'm done with this, I can move from right to left. Your orientation will be totally different. When you're trying to take from the right bowl to the left bowl, your orientation is totally different altogether. So that will also give a lot of stability to your hand muscles and your wrist muscles because you're trying to spoon in and you're trying to transfer it from one bowl to another. Okay, the purpose is very simple because you want the child to actually work on developing the skill of spooning. But at the same time, we're also helping the child for the movements, the development of the child's simple muscle movements. Now, as Monica was telling that they were more concentrating on the activity. The child does not want to leave any of the thing that is actually spilled up. They wanted to work on it. So that's very important because
I saw so many times in this activity, ma'am.
That's okay. That's okay. You don't have to stop, Monica. Don't stop.
Okay.
Okay. The last one, guys. The last one in preliminary exercise is called as pouring grains. Okay, it's called the pouring grains. Now here, just like spooning, we had to work on pouring. Now, when you want to pour something, what you need, you generally need a pitcher, right? So you need 2 pitchers and you're going to be pouring from one pitcher to the other pitcher. This is one of the exercise. Or you can have mug, or you can take a glass and then you pour from one glass to another thing, or you can take a funnel and you can pour from this into the funnel and that comes into your glass. So the intensity of doing this exercise is totally up to the teacher, the level of what the child wants to pick it up. But you have to teach them the skill of pouring. Okay, so pouring becomes essential for all of you. You have to be teaching them about the pouring. Now, I'm going to first start with something very simple. That is, take grain. It becomes easy for me. After grains is what I would give any liquid. And I give liquid, it could be water, it could be anything else. That becomes my liquid exercises. Okay, so let's see some of this very simple exercise of pouring. I'm going to be using just a glass of water, or sorry, not the water. I'm just going to be using 2 mugs and then I'm going to be pouring with the help of mugs. So you can take a transparent bowl because at the initial, the teacher wants to see and the child also wants to see what is getting poured onto. Keep a tray underneath. The mug have a handle and you're trying to pour from one mug to another one. Okay, now you started with the left one. You need not hold it in your hand. One can be kept on the tray also. That is fine. Okay, so once you're done, you're going to be keeping it back. So it depends again on your dexterity. Which hand are you really good at? So this is one way of doing it. Now, what if I do not have any such items or any such things? So if you want to give more items to actually get filled into, so you want to distribute it with so many other containers and other glasses, you can also give them with a marking. See, I have marked here on the steel glass some marking. Now you will all be more conscious. The child will be more conscious. Okay, I have to pour only till I get into that particular mark, right? So you have that particular mug again. Take one of the glass and observe it closely till where I have to be pouring it, and then start pouring it into it. So this is where we're going to be talking again about the skill of pouring. But at the same time, you're also going to be equally distributing it to all the glasses. So you're trying to distribute. So we are working on the capacity also. How much needs to be given? Okay, the volume, the capacity of that particular material into that glasses. So you're going to give that. So if there's anything remaining, it will be there. But since I had collected an equal amount of things, it got equally distributed with all of this. So this is one of the other skilled exercise that you can actually work with. Now, sometimes what happens, some of the children will not be good enough in transferring the things at one go. Now, that is when I would be giving the child a funnel because they're spilling a lot or something like that. Then you could also give a funnel because you're doing a non-identical transfer. One is a glass. One, if you can see the mouth of that particular container is very small. In those cases, you have to give funnel because there are chances of you spilling it out. We are not using identical mugs here. So if it's non-identical and the mouth of it is very small, you go use a funnel for it. And then you start to transfer the grains or lentils or any kind of a liquids into it. So this is a complete transfer. You're going to wait and then you are done with it. So these are all some of the extensions of pouring. You could use grains, you could use anything else to actually give an extreme level of confidence for the child when they're trying to work on pouring skills. So all of them are somewhere down the line contributing to something very important, that is your fingers, right? So we are trying to work on preparing the finger muscles for the child. We're also preparing them a skill of being independent. Now, at the same time, the child is also working on becoming more independent and they're able to relate to a lot of work, what is actually being seen at their homes. So that completes your first part of your EPL skills. So we have just completed the first part of EPL skill that is considered to be as preliminary exercises. We have still left out with care of a person, care of an environment, grace and courtesy, and coordination of movement. So we still have 4 more parts. There are lots of exercises in EPL. We have just completed 1. We still have 4 more to actually carry on. Okay. So as I mentioned earlier also that I will be winding off my day a little early today because of some medical appointment that I have it. So I will be winding off the day. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me today on time. And I'm very sorry for winding up the class a little early today. And tomorrow we're going to see again all of you at the same time. And I had the submission from Adeline for the assignment. So thank you, Adeline, for it. And others, if you have not done your assignment, it's almost getting time, so you need to hurry up. Okay. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much. Loads of love to all of you. Take care and have a wonderful evening. Okay.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Take
Good
care.
day, ma'am.
Bye-bye.
Take
Have a
care.
nice day.
Bye.
Have a nice
Bye.
day.
Bye, ma'am.